I do think one thing that diminishes, writing, I can only speak for writing in the literary world. I think it's just like, we got to start deprioritizing awards and deprioritizing this shit where it's like, people are no longer invested in that relationship with the work that says, I want to love this book well while it's mine, and then give it the best life it can possibly have. Like, did I want to, it's not like I woke up in March and was like, I want to be on the road for 6.5 months and be 65, but I was like, I love this book. It taught me so much, and I want to give it the best life it can possibly have, because I think we owe each other that.
Yeah.
And in the process, like, I think I want to share what I believe I owe to this book with other people. And I think sometimes, like, I think the awards in these kind of things prioritize a kind of scarcity.
Yeah.
That lead to this thing that you talked about earlier, where we start to look at each other as competition.
Yeah.
And we don't start to look towards each other with gratitude anymore. Yeah. And if we don't look towards each other with gratitude, how are we going to look towards our work with gratitude?
That's
because
so
there
real.
are people embedded in my work. There are mentors and like peers embedded in my work who some would suggest that I'm in competition with. And so how can I look at my work with any pride if I am to think of the people who got me to this point as my competition? And so, I say this and I know it's not going to happen because, like, awards culture and these kind of things. And I'm also aware of the fact that I've like won some shit, you know what I mean? Like, but I think folks who know me well know that that was never the goal. The goal was always to kind of just be like, how do I tap into an honoring of the lineage I'm placing myself in? It would be a betrayal to my living lineage too, and the lineage I hope and I am building, to look at anyone within it as competition.
And that I really appreciate that. That goes back to like my first question around audience, and why I'm always fascinated about that when I meet an artist, because that can determine a lot for that person. Like if you I was blessed to have mentors when I was younger that had a very cynical relationship with audience that really showed me, that really kind of dispelled the myth of like doing things for audience as a way of like validating your role as a creative. It's like, oh, if they pay attention, or if I get what they can offer, then only then am I doing something that is important or has any validity in the context of creation. And so that's why I'm like always like, okay, how, especially when I'm pretty sure as well as you, like we have peers who can demand hundreds of thousands of people, and then we have peers who 10 people might show up. And when you talk to them about where the value comes, you can sort of figure out how are they looking at that, like what does that mean to them, and the ones that get lost in the hundreds of thousands. Because unfortunately, I say unfortunately, that is the byproduct of doing something great. It's like the more you continue to do what you do, and you perfect and you interrogate yourself and you create things that people respond to, the audience scales. And I think it's unfortunate because I literally just had the conversation with one of my homies who's an amazing rapper, Brother Ali. We were talking. I was at his show 2 days ago, and we were talking backstage, and he said something that I was like, that's so interesting. He said, I have to deal with the fact that these people are feeding my enemy, which is my ego.
Absolutely.
He said, so I'm constantly in this struggle with them, because it's like I need them because I'm creating something that I feel is aligned to my purpose. But I also got to keep caution with the fact that the more they scale, the more they feed my enemy. And I was like, yeah, that puts in words the way I be thinking about it. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I really love what you're saying about if we can get to a place where, but I don't know if there's an answer to.
It's not really.
Yeah.
You got to touch, for me, it's like, I got to touch Benny the Butcher has this line, my heroes are in jumpsuits and New Balances, like talking about all those heroes locked up, you know what I mean? And I love that. I love that as an extended metaphor on, because some of my heroes are like truly like the dude. I still tap in with the dude who I was 20 was my celly. Like we still write.
That's beautiful.
And more than that, like I grew up around hustlers. I grew up around, elders who were just on their porches telling. And like if I say these are the people who I'm still kind of turning towards, if I am concerned with audience at all, these are my heroes. And yeah, some of my heroes so happen to write and have big audiences or whatever. But additionally, my heroes are some folks who their audience is whoever shows up to the porch that day.
Right.
Their audience is whoever gets on the visit list. You know what I mean? Like their audience is you know what I mean? Like whoever's at the dinner table because they got enough money to bring a meal home. And that's humbling in a way. And it's a reminder of where I came from. And it's a reminder of not just where I came from, because I think some people are like, I remember where I came from, but they do it while looking over their shoulder. I want to remember where I came from while still facing where I came from.
I like that. Yeah.
I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I remember where I'm from. I want to be facing the people who built the little heaven that is where I'm from. I don't want to let that go. And so there's some ways that I think a concern for audience for me has always been less about number of people who show up. And I'm also distinctly aware that this year has led to much bigger audiences for me and my work. And that's cool. And I love what Brother Ali said. And I'm, we're talking like before my last show of the year, and then I'm off the road till like February, and I'm eager to get back to a kind of like an egoless approach to my living,
And it's tough though, because I think, I mean, it's like the difficulty is around the idea that you're good at what you do. Like, and it's like in some ways, the good at what you do exists in the context of sometimes having to prove people that didn't think so, or proving to yourself when you didn't think so.
yeah.
And then it kind of, and so I get
The ego intervenes when it's required, but sometimes it stays too long. You know what I mean?
Right. And then he, like, literally this conversation we was having, then he interjected and he said, but sometimes that's heart. You know what I mean? You think it's ego, but it's heart. You know what I mean? It's like, and then you're like, oh yeah, that is true. Like those times when I needed something to encourage me, maybe that was heart. That wasn't ego.
Yeah.
And so it gets I don't know. I think I had an elder who would always talk about, he said, politics is a necessary evil for democracy. And sometimes I feel like audience is the necessary evil for like being given a gift that is about communication. It's sometimes you can't control all that shows up, in terms of, you might just want to have a one-on-one conversation, but you're creating something that is a drum for everyone to show up to. And then
it requires something bigger than what
it requires
I could do on my
it
own.
requires
Yeah.
you to tend the garden that you probably you planting seeds everywhere, and these seeds grow, and then now your job becomes tending the garden, and you're
Right,
like,
right,
okay,
right.
wait, when's the last time you saw me? When's the last you heard from me? Let me make sure you understand, and you don't have a distortion of. But anyway, like question. We're in New Orleans. What is when you think about New Orleans music, what would be like top 3? I don't want to do artists. That's a setup, but
Yeah.
maybe songs.
Oh gosh, songs is even harder.
But let's not rank it. Let's just say songs that you find endearing.
I'm gonna go off the top of my head. I love a Lil Wayne song I love that I feel like people forget is Clear the Set, which was on the second Hot Boys record, I think. It's like young Wayne, but
Yeah.
that was a song I remember where I was like, oh, I think he's maybe better than these guys.
Yeah.
I was like a Hot Boys optimist. Like I thought those dudes were talented.
No, definitely.
But I remember hearing Clear Set and being like, oh, I think he maybe is just like better than these other dudes.
Yeah.
I love Big Frida, man. Like
Frida's amazing.
Frida's records, I'm gonna just say broadly the Big Frida catalog, like the Frida catalog. But those records, I think like people think of her as just like a singles or like a songs artist, but the record she came out with last year was great. It was like incredible. And I was disheartened. Maybe was that last year or early this year? Time is elastic. I think it was last year. And I was disheartened by the lack of attention that got.
No, Frida's amazing.
And I love Buddy Baldwin. I love.
Yeah.
Because I think he's kind of the spark for the free. I know these aren't songs. I'm just naming people. But there's like a free form innovation that is happening on the stage during, like going like any jazz club here, which I used to do when I was younger, and like watching folks play with each other. And there's like a messiness that isn't diminishing the sonic quality of it. And I think like that kind of free form excitement around improvisation and musicians just finding each other in the mess of it all, that doesn't happen in a lot of other places,
No, for sure.
And particularly around percussion. Like New Orleans has had some of the best drummers I've ever heard in my life, you know what I mean? And if you are someone who, like a lot of performers, try to organize themselves sonically around the drums, you're either gonna have a real hard time here or you're not. You know what I mean? Depending on what kind of skill you got. You see, it'll be hard for you. You got to either figure it out real quick or you're not. And I love New Orleans. To talk about sound, I just love it as a percussion driven. Like Manny Fresh is, for me, one of the best producers who ever lived because he
For
like
sure.
harnessed.
I agree.
He was able to harness these percussive elements and just reinvent them. Where I
Definitely.
think like in a ways that like if you listen to some of those old Manny Fresh productions, people might consider them abrasive because of the just wave of heavy percussion. But it's like no, he's like layering drums in ways that he was really paying homage to this place that is such a like obviously instrumentalists out here can play whatever, but I've always been so drawn to the rhythms of the drums in this place and the producers who were able to harness that really well. And Manny Fresh being among them, GLC being another one, but like I was just so impressed by that. He's one of my favorite producers who's ever lived. Truly.
Nah, Fresh is one of the yeah. There's so many great things to say about Fresh, what he contributes to hip hop music in general, but also this city and what he continues to do. And I remember him saying once about like his drum style was more closer connected to like the way you think about brass band
Yep.
music, and then their KLC was more like marching band. It was more like
Yeah. Oh, KLC is definitely like I mean, KLC was like, I think about one of my favorite No Limit records is that Fiend record. There's one in every family. And I remember like the shit KLC was doing on that was like pure. It was like just straight up ripped from the marching band
yeah,
structure. I had never heard anyone rapping over stuff like
right.
that, you
No, for
know?
sure. And it's crazy because those two music traditions, like thinking about marching bands, thinking about brass bands, like these are things that I don't think we take for granted, but it's just so embedded in like, I was having conversations with football stuff coming up and talking about like how in New Orleans might be one of the few cities where the marching band is just as popular, if not more
It's a
popular
show.
than the high school. I mean,
Yeah.
than the football team.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's like to have that level of like attention paid to the drum line or the marching band, all those things are just so crazy to think about how it informs the way we think, even the way we speak to each other. One of my homies just breaking it down, talking about our cadence, the way we talk to each other. He was rooting it back to like West African traditions that sound like more
Rhythmic.
rhythmic
Yeah.
when you speak.